Hello readers, I'm back with another journal spread and 15 thoughts about Somewhere Between Bitter and Sweet by Laekan Zea Kemp. Today is my stop for Hear Our Voices book tours, and I hope you'll stick around to kind of see what I've put together this time. It was actually a lot. I had a little bit of difficulty putting all my thoughts and making little icons for it like I did last time, but I hope you sit back, hang out, and enjoy what I've drawn here. If you're curious what I'm using to color things in, right now I'm using a Tombow brush pen, and in other places I use some of my Crayola, what are they even called? Hold on a second, let me see. Crayola Super Tips. Sometimes I have, I think they're Faber-Castell pens. There's just like quite a few things that I have some Stabilo markers that I use, so I really ended up using all of the pens in my arsenal. Coloring things in at the beginning of these videos always takes the longest because I'm trying to work around the doodles. I'm trying to work around a tripod that's in front of me. For this one in particular, and also like last time, I did want to pull in some of the colors that were on the cover of Somewhere Between Bitter and Sweet. And if you've seen the cover, there's also some cacti, cacti in the background. While doing this, I actually learned that it's called prickly pear cactus. So that's what I tried to draw to the best of my ability. You know, despite editing out large chunks of time, this is still super time consuming. I even went ahead and like sped it up by 300%. In some places I sped it up to 400%, but I should be almost done coloring in the background. I did some lighter brown for kind of sand, deserty stuff. In the future, I may prep by just doing all this coloring before I start the video, but I don't know if it's relaxing for you to watch, so just, I guess, let me know in the comments. Like I said, I tried to draw some sand here just to give the bottom of the page some weight so it doesn't look like the cactus are just floating, cacti are just floating in the middle of nowhere. I apologize if you hear dogs barking in the background. It sounds like my neighbor let out and left out their dogs, and there's not much I can do about that, so sorry. So as you can see, I am starting to color in the cacti. I used a green color to start with, and I tried to draw kind of like these ovalish flat shapes to make cacti, and then I use the red marker for the buds or the flowers that end up on the prickly pear cacti. So here I'm coloring the one on the right, and I'm doing that first pass of this green, adding the little buds on this as well. And then you'll see shortly that I decide to take a darker green color, and you know, to be honest, when I was trying to compare the colors, they seemed very, very similar. So I'm happy that when it dried, you could still see just a slight color variance. Yeah, here we go. So here's me coloring in with the darker green, and I kind of like the way that looks. I like that it just gives it a little bit more depth. I am so ignorant when it comes to plant things. I probably should have looked up what the little spiky things on the cactus are called, because I have no idea. Spindles, spines, pokey things, I really don't know what they're called. But on the book cover, they were white. And I was really hoping to replicate that, but I was worried because the white markers and pens that I have, sometimes they work depending on what's underneath them, and I wasn't sure if it was going to work with the marker. So at first I tried a jelly pen, and it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. And I'm trying to figure out, what did I end up using that was actually a lot better? I think I used a Posco pen. It was a lot more opaque. Let's see. Uniball Posca. Yeah. So here's me using the jelly roll. And like you can see it sort of. I just didn't think it was great. It wasn't super opaque. It felt like it just wasn't really sticking to the paper. I tried on both sides to do it like this. I even tried like clearing the pen tip just in case that was the issue, but you know, it wasn't great. So eventually I'm just like, hey, where's my Posca pen? Because I feel like that's going to work way better. I don't know, man. I think these cacti might be like the best thing on this entire spread. I handled them with so much care. And like I said, here's the Posca pen. And like Posca? Yes. Posca pen. So right away, like you can see how much more opaque it is and how much brighter it is. So kudos to me for buying those. Okay, finally, we're on the doodles. So I read Somewhere Between Bitter and Sweet. It is a YA contemporary coming of age, somewhat romance. I feel like it was hard hitting to me, but it does take place in Texas, and it revolves around a Mexican American family. So the first doodle here and a few of my thoughts are me drawing the Mexican flag. Wish me luck. Me drawing the Mexican flag and drawing the Texas flag to represent that. So I have seen the Mexican flag from a distance before, but I never like really examined it until having to draw it and look at it. And there's a lot of symbolism in the Mexican flag, and also the coat of arms that's in the middle of the flag is very involved. Let me see. I have a bit of a description here. It says the coat of arms is in the center of the flag with a laurel branch symbolizing victory and honor underneath. There is an eagle on a prickly pear cactus, and he is devouring a rattlesnake. The prickly pear cactus is also like on an island. Okay, so it says, according to legend, the wandering Aztecs would know where to build their new city when they saw an eagle perched on a cactus. The image did appear to them, but in an unlikely place, on a tiny island in the middle of Lake Texcoco. To build their city, the Aztecs formed a number of small garden islands connected by causeways. Based on the mistranslation of Aztec text, the snake was later added to the story by the Spanish. Does that look like an eagle devouring a snake on a prickly pear? I don't know. This story is told from two perspectives, one of them being from Penelope. She is the eldest daughter in the family, a family that owns a restaurant. She wants to be a pastry chef. She is a little bit, she has a bit of a tough exterior. So a lot of times when she's talked about in the book, people are like, you need to avoid her. Don't get on her bad side. But Pen has a red bandana. And hashtag red for pen. You may or may not catch me wearing a red bandana sometime this week, so be sure to follow Libri Labra on Instagram and Twitter. At some point, Pen was trying to cook her sister breakfast, but her sister didn't want any of it. She wanted to eat Fruit Loops instead, which is what I'm drawing right now. I thought it was pretty funny because my brother used to love Fruit Loops growing up, and so that was something that I thought about. The other thing that I thought about while reading this book is, I'm drawing a broken heart here, but it's really about disappointing family. It's tough, and I totally get it. And the story begins with Pen withholding a secret from her family because she was just so worried about disappointing them. This story is also told from Xander's perspective, and Xander lives with his abuelo, and at one point it's mentioned that his abuelo was playing cards or poker with like a neighbor. And listen, I am definitely here for viejitos doing what viejitos do, man. Hanging out, playing cards, being funny, being sarcastic, just doing their viejito thing. In another part of the story, there was mention of cilantro soup, and I may have gagged. I am unfortunately one of those people that like have been cursed with cilantro tasting like soap. So even though I know it's used a lot in like Mexican food and lots of different recipes, I can't do it. It will like ruin a dish for me so quickly. And I can't even have coriander either. It tastes exactly the same. It's just, it honestly tastes like someone put dish soap in my food. I can't do it. As I mentioned before, the second perspective that is used throughout the story is Xander's perspective. He is a new hire at Nacho's Tacos. We really like empanadas here, and I've made them a couple of times for my son, and the most that I've ever made was probably like 40 half empanadas. And the reason I mention this is because at some point, Xander mentions the fact that he made 126 tacos throughout the duration of the night, and that kind of blew my mind. Like, that's a lot. Anyway, so here I was trying to draw or doodle Penn's coconut cake. It is mentioned multiple times in the story, and today I realized that on one of the postcards I received from the author, it has Penn's coconut cake recipe. So you best believe I'm going to be making that soon. My husband might not be too happy because he hates coconut, but you know, what are you going to do? I tried drawing some coconut flakes here on the top of the cake and it didn't turn out too bad. The next thing I drew was some coins to represent Xander's abuelo's coin collection. This made me think about the fact that my godfather, who raised me, also had a coin collection, which he left me when he passed away. And he had some really old coins. Like, some of them were so old that they looked like stones. He had a very, very interesting collection. It's been a while since I've looked at them, but I think the next time I have an opportunity, I may take some time to go through them and maybe like research some of the coins that he has. So I tried to draw, some profiles of people on the coin and then like sort of a building, but it looks more like a mountain, whatever. I think you can tell that they're coins. This might be an interesting choice, but I'm drawing a clown here because something that struck me in regards to the dynamic of all of the people that worked at Nacho's Tacos was that they like had a tradition of like clowning around with each other. Like, they'd make a whole event out of it. And at first I thought it was like a little bit much, but then I realized that the only time I've ever been like that has been with siblings. And I think it did a good job of just showing that family closeness. In another part of the story, Penn mentions having a suitcase which was stuffed with socks, My Little Ponies, and donuts. And I was just struck by the strange combination of it all. And so I just felt like I had to draw that. So here's me drawing a suitcase. The little blue thing is like a My Little Ponytail. And then this on the left is supposed to be a sock. You can't see the donuts, but you can just imagine that the donuts are in there because they are. I can't remember if they mentioned what kind of donuts, but man, those poor donuts, they deserved better. Here I'm drawing a guitarrón mexicano, which is used in mariachi bands. It is a deep-bodied Mexican 6-string acoustic bass. And the reason I wanted to include this is because mariachi music is mentioned in the story, but also because when I was young, I remember watching Linda Ronstadt's Canciones de mi Padre, which was mariachi music. And as a kid, it was so beautiful. I loved it so much. And I think I'm going to start listening to more mariachi music because it's beautiful. The horns, it's just, I mean, I think I like the upbeat stuff more, but I love it. I love it so much. It's great. If you haven't like stopped to really listen to mariachi music, you definitely should. I think something that the author did incredibly well was capture the sense of community between all of the characters. And so that's what I'm trying to visually represent here. I'm kind of putting little circles with people in them, and then later on I do connect them with threads. But again, it was just an overwhelming sense of community, and it was just so nice to see people coming together in that way. I want to see and experience so much more of that, not just in stories or in movies or in books, but like in real life. People coming together to help each other and not hurt each other. It's beautiful. I hope you're still with me. Just a few more out of the 15 thoughts to go. Something else that was really nice was that there were actually some 80s movie references. One was to The Karate Kid, there was another to The Princess Bride, but The Karate Kid was like one of my favorite movies growing up. But I really liked that they were mentioned. It was just nice to remember. And so that's why I have the 80s with a film strip written here, because it's just something I stopped to think about. It was pretty cool to see. I can't remember if the story actually mentions what decade it's taking place in, but I didn't get any kind of a sense that it was in the past. It seemed very current. It's possible I missed it, but I don't know. I don't know. It felt very current. So I probably should have taken a little bit more time to really decide how I wanted to draw this film strip, because I'm making a sloppy mess out of it. I wasn't really sure what I was doing until the end here. I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. But I was winging it for the most part. Um, I broke out the Posca pen again towards the end to just fill in that little spot in the lower left that looks a little bit too dark. Oh, hey, we're on the last doodle. If you are still here, thank you so much for sticking with me and watching me draw all these silly things. But hopefully you can see that this is a sign that I'm drawing. What I thought was really cool, and I don't know if everybody does this, but I always read the acknowledgments and the author notes at the end. And the acknowledgments in this book, I felt like were so interesting and heartfelt, and they were just like fun to read. Normally it's just a bunch of names of people that I don't know, so I read it anyway because people should be recognized. But it's rarely something that I connect with, and this in particular just seemed really, really interesting because she included stuff about, where her inspiration came from, why she wrote the story, who she wrote it for, which pieces reflected her life, which pieces reflected her partner's life. And it was a pleasure to read the acknowledgments, and it was actually a couple of pages long, but by far the most interesting acknowledgments I have ever read. So that's it. Those are the 15 things that I thought while reading Somewhere Between Bitter and Sweet by Laekan Zea Kemp. It'll be coming out April 6th. Be sure to check it out. It was a pretty awesome book. I loved the story. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell to be notified when I upload new videos. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.